Hey, what's up everyone? This is going to be my one more planned video of the day. It's an important video that needs to be shared with others. So, this is not a scare video, this is just a truth video. This was shared online today that apparently 20,000 5G satellites are set to be launched around this world. Now, I'm really not sure how they would be able to transmit that signal down here, given the fact that 5G, they state, is over a very short distance. They have to be very closely located, roughly 200 to 300 feet apart. And they do not go through walls, ceilings, and floors, and vehicles, and any solid objects, basically. So you would have to have one in every room. So I'm not sure how you could put 20,000 5G satellites up there and it would do us any good down here, unless they had some kind of a giant receiver that then transmitted it down to Earth. I don't know. But I know that that's what their plan is, to launch 20,000 5G satellites. That's not to be confused with when you see 2.4 and 5G, which is, or GHZ, which is gigahertz. 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. Now, 2.4 gigahertz, it goes out further, but it has less bandwidth, and it doesn't have as much speed as 5 gigahertz. 5 gigahertz, it goes less far and doesn't go as easily through walls, but it will work faster if you're closer to the source, to your router. But 5G is completely different. 5G means fifth generation, so I'm not sure. They want to install billions of these things worldwide across almost every single area. Basically a network of networks. The vehicles, the buildings, everything being smart. So I'm not sure what they'll do. But if this is true, 20,000 of these are expected to be launched, sending dangerous beams of intense microwave radiation across this world. Let's open the link, see what they have to say. Now, we're already surrounded by signals 24/7, everywhere. But in local urban communities, there will be a 5G cell tower approximately every 500 feet along every street. Okay, see, that's what they're saying. They said 200 to 300 feet on YouTube, but apparently it's 500 feet. So who knows? As bad as these small cell towers might seem from the standpoint of constant exposure to this radio frequency, and I'm talking very high radio frequency in close proximity to the source, perhaps an even more alarming prospect will be the beaming of millimeter-length microwaves at the Earth from thousands of new communication satellites. So they want to put these up there having millimeter signals, signal radiation, signal distance. 20,000 of these are expected to be launched, sending focused beams of intense microwave radiation over the entire Earth. Now that is too far, and I believe that will be dangerous. The entire Earth by 5G wireless internet service satellite signals, 3D illustration shown above. Public attention about 5G has been focused on the plans of telecom companies to install millions upon millions of small cell towers on the electric utility poles, on public buildings, on schools, on bus stop shelters, in public parks, basically on your vehicles, on the light posts, on security lights, in public parks, and anywhere they want in national parks and any federally owned land. Meaning they can put it anywhere they want, because pretty much the government owns everything. Everything. Literally. You don't even own your house. You don't even own anything. It can be taken anytime. It's ridiculous. Anyway, moving on. But they can put these things anywhere they want. In local urban communities, there would be a 5G cell tower approximately every 500 feet. Urban communities. So that means these areas, maybe that's what they put up here that's suddenly giving us signal. Maybe it's a test. We'll find out. But they want to put them along every street in urban areas. But perhaps, think about that. Every 500 feet they're going to put these things up. Fiber optics wasn't fast enough. They want something else, something more. And many people, it's going to be so expensive, most people can't even afford it. As of right now, the data transmission cost is ridiculous. And to have one of these transmitters in your vehicle at all times, which is what they want, in your home, it's going to cost you $500 just for the device itself, and then an additional $75 to $100 a month. So, outrageous. And they want to put these things everywhere, and they already put fiber optics cables everywhere for light transmission through light, internet transmission through light, data transmission through light. But now they want to do this. And they say this is dangerous. But perhaps an even more alarming prospect will be the beaming of this millimeter-length microwaves, these millimeter-length microwaves at the Earth from thousands of new communication satellites. The FCC gave approval to SpaceX back on March 29th of 2018 to launch 4,425 satellites into low orbit around the Earth. The total number of satellites that is expected to be put into low and high orbit by several companies will now be 20,000 satellites. 5G will be used, and 5G will use phased array antennas to shoot beams of radiation at cell phones. So these highly charged beams, dangerously charged beams of high radiation will be beamed directly at cell phones. These satellites will use the same type of phased array antennas as will be used by the ground-based 5G systems. So it'll be above ground, below ground, around the hills and valleys and urban areas and in the sky, all around you, in every single place. This means that they will send, and this is true news here. This means they will send tightly focused beams of immense microwave radiation at each person and each specific 5G device that is on the Earth. And each device will send a beam of radiation back to the satellite and to the transmitters. Previous generations of RF, which stands for radio frequency cellular communication, used large antennas to send a blanket of radiation in all directions. The lower frequencies they used and the broad distribution of microwaves limited the number of cellular devices that could connect through an individual tall tower. The much shorter wavelength, the much shorter length microwaves that are used for 5G 5th generation will make it possible to use small phased array antennas to send and receive signals. Phased array antennas consist of clusters of hundreds and hundreds of tiny antennas that will work together to shoot a ray of highly charged energy at a target just like a bullet, directly sending the beam toward you or toward your device, exactly like a bullet, in a moment, just a millisecond. And a cluster of these tiny antennas can be arranged in a 4-inch by 4-inch matrix. The rays of microwaves they produce will be strong enough to pass through walls and human bodies. If they were not strong enough to do this, then everyone with a 5G smartphone would have to stand outside when using the devices. So apparently they are modifying them and making them stronger where they do go through walls and solid objects, and even your body. Even each 5G product will also have multiple phased array antennas which will be used to create a powerful beam of radiation back to the 5G devices that are mounted on these electrical utility poles, basically your security lights, street lights, anything, or toward a specific satellite that's in space. These beams of radiation will also need to be strong enough to pass through walls and human flesh, the human body, such as a hand or a head, to reach the intended destination. I'm not talking like, oh, it's just frequency everywhere. I'm saying frequencies everywhere, but sending to directly to a device, a beam directly through you in a direct manner, like a ray just going right through you. That's going to hurt. That's going to cause a lot of medical problems, more than what we see now. Talk about migraines and Talk about death. That's why we nickname them death towers. Moving on. Sorry about the doom and gloom here, but this means that if you are not in a crowded location, such as an airport or on a train, there will be hundreds of, if not thousands, of visible beams of radiation flying through the environment at the speed of light. Invisible beams now. I don't know why I said visible. There'll be hundreds of thousands of these invisible beams of radiation flying through the environment at the speed of light. As people move in that environment, their bodies will be continuously penetrated by numerous beams of radiation as they walk, or as other people walk around them with their 5G smartphones. Every single 5G device sending beams back and forth at high speed. Now, this is a new chapter. This is a new danger. 5G phones will be much more powerful than previous phones. They're unlike anything. They didn't even test it out on people. This is unlike anything we've ever dealt with. The effective radiated power of the 5G phased array antennas in phones will be 10 times more powerful than the 4G phones we have today. No one will be free from exposure anymore in this world. There'll be no place that you're free from this exposure now. In addition, 5G beams of radiation, microwave radiation, will be received and transmitted from new computer equipment, new household appliances, and automobiles. Stationary equipment such as Wi-Fi hubs being put in homes and offices will be permitted to use microwave beams that are 15 times stronger, 300 watts, than the original signals from the 5G phones, or the original signals. The signals from 5G phones are 150 times stronger than 4G phones. We'll have 300 watts of signal going through you in every direction at all times, beamed not just in every direction, but beamed directly at the devices around you or on you. Now, why is 5G so much more dangerous than previous microwave communication systems? Arthur Furstenberg, author, a researcher, and an advocate for limiting radio frequency exposure from the environment, like the RFID chips, radio frequency identification chips, and all of these things. He explains the analysis of 5G radiation that was published in Microwave News back in 2002. When an ordinary electromagnetic field enters the body, he says, it causes charges to move and currents to flow. But when extremely short electromagnetic pulses, like 5G, enter the body, something else happens. The moving charges themselves become little antennas that re-radiate the electromagnetic field and send it deeper into the body itself. These re-radiated waves, they're called Brillion precursors. They become significant when either the power or the phase of the waves changes rapidly enough. 5G will probably satisfy both requirements, that's for sure. This means that the reassurance we are being given that these millimeter waves that they are implementing now are too short to penetrate far into the human body is not true. They will definitely be harmful to us. 5G satellites will now fill the skies. Think about it. These are the companies with the biggest plans to deploy these satellites. SpaceX is planning to deploy 12,000 5G satellites, OneWeb 4,560 of them, Boeing 2,956 of them, and Spire Global has 972 of them they are going to launch. Arthur Furstenberg describes the plans of corporations who want to use 5G technology. He said, Honeywell has already signed a memorandum of understanding to become OneWeb's first large customer. It plans to provide high-speed Wi-Fi on business, commercial, and military aircraft throughout this world. SpaceX would like to provide the equivalent of 5G to every person on this planet. Ground-based 5G implementation These ground-based 5G systems are already being implemented in dozens of major cities right now. Plans are being approved, as I stated in a previous video, several of my previous videos, by hundreds of cities. Hundreds of other cities will allow the implementation in 2019 and beyond. And I think several hundred more cities by mid this year. By around June of this year, hundreds more cities will have then activated more 5G towers. Cities do not have the right to say no to 5G. They can't say no. No one can say no. They do what they want. These FCC regulations prevent cities from objectifying or objecting on the basis of health concerns. They only can speak of the issues of aesthetics and the practical matter of the placement of equipment. That's all that anyone can say anything about. They are required to say, yes, you have no choice but to comply. And they better do it quickly, they stated, or telecom companies will threaten them with legal action for obstructing their plans. Basically, if you don't agree with 5G, you'll be sued, and you have no right to say no. And that's under the FCC laws. Satellite-based 5G implementation. The first 2 5G test satellites were launched by SpaceX in February of last year. That's 2018. Hundreds of other satellites are expected to be launched this year, 2019, and the full set of 20,000 satellites could be put into orbit during the next 2 years. Now, I don't know how in the world you're going to put 20,000 satellites up in 2 years. That'll be a lot of satellite launches, but whatever. To put this into perspective, as of September of 2017, I keep thinking 2017 was last year, but it's not. 2018 was. There were 1,738 operating satellites put into orbit around this Earth. That means that the number of satellites will be 11 times greater than the current number we have. By next year, the number of satellites around this world will be 11 times greater than what we have now, supposedly. Now, the environmental catastrophe from rockets used to launch satellites. Rocket fuel is very destructive to the Earth's ozone layer. We know that, that protects us from the harsh effects of radiation from the sun. In 2017, there were 90 rocket launch attempts worldwide. The rockets that use solid fuel produce massive ozone depletion. While rockets used liquid kerosene as fuel, they destroy less ozone. They release massive amounts of black carbon soot into the air of the Earth, especially at high altitudes. If the number of annual rocket launches increases by 10 or more times than what we are seeing now, and they're stating it will, which is likely right now, under the plans that these corporations have now made and put into place, computer models suggest that the combination of ozone depletion and release of black soot could produce a 3-degree warming effect over the Antarctic and reduce the ozone layer in this world's atmosphere by 4%. Now that would be real global warming and climate change right there. Not what we're dealing with now. And they fuss about what we're doing. They talk about humans eating meat and cow farts and fuel and gas, your vehicles, your cooking, your restaurants, and your burning of wood and coal, and they want to do this? Huh. Yeah, okay. They fuss about the civilians' normal everyday, day-to-day activities. We're not even allowed to burn here anymore. They fuss about all of that, but yet they do this. Right. Anyway, even though it will be possible for a single rocket to put multiple satellites into orbit, we are still talking about a 10 or 20-fold increase in the environmental damage of this Earth over what is being produced today. The 5G satellites have a relatively short lifespan, perhaps only 5 years, which means there will be a high number of rocket launches consistently, not just in the next 5 years, but in every year for the foreseeable future of this world. Mercury-based rocket fuel could spread neurotoxins over this Earth as well. As bad as liquid and solid rocket fuels will be for the environment, Apollo Fusion is developing a Mercury-based propulsion system for launching these rockets, and any rockets. These ion propulsion rockets' engines use powerful magnets to push away small charged particles at high speeds. which generates thrust. NASA experimented with mercury ion propulsion in the 1960s, but abandoned the research. Mercury is an extremely strong neurotoxin, which is very harmful to all forms of life, especially humans. The risk of an environmental catastrophe the risks of this are monumental. According to the research, if there were a malfunction of one of these engines exploded, highly toxic mercury would be spread through the atmosphere and all over the earth. All the talk from telecom companies about 5G being a panacea for environmental protection and energy conservation is quite ridiculous when you look at the true statistical data. When we think about the environmental damage that will be created by any of these rocket engines that they choose to launch for launching their satellites and their 5G satellites, it's monumental. Space junk will then pollute the Earth. Each satellite will be the size of a small refrigerator and will weigh approximately 880 pounds. With a life expectancy of only 5 years, this means that there will be a massive amount of just junk, known as space junk, orbiting the Earth. Eventually, all of those satellites will fall down to Earth and burn up as they enter the Earth's atmosphere. All of those hazardous materials in the satellites will then be released into the air and will float down to the ground as dust or in droplets of our rain. Telecom communities are actually creating a worldwide disaster in the name of technological process, and they don't even care. Crazy. 5G is promoted as being the next great wonder in the plan to advance technology to create smart cities where everything in existence and everyone is instantly connected in real time with no delay, with no lags, no lost signals, no problems. Connection everywhere. Of course, there will be a few costs, especially money. Everyone will be irradiated with millimeter-sized non-ionizing radiation. And we're talking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with completely unknown health effects because guess what? They did no studies on this. Studies designated to investigate harm from 5G will be completed many years after the 5G systems on the ground and in space around this world are fully implemented. They're only going to study the effects of them after they implement them. This is insane. And I'm glad whoever documented it because this needs to be shared. At that point, it is very unlikely that telecom companies would even decimate their systems. Because think about it. They're making plenty of money off of it, and it's doing exactly what they wanted. But would they decimate it, even if it is shown that their technology is causing cancer and other diseases and killing people worldwide? They would just deny the risks as they've done with this. They would tell us that the science was settled decades ago. They will tell us that evidence linking 5G to cancer and other diseases, death, is just a conspiracy theory like they do with everything that only a few crackpots believe. Millions of people will suffer from radiation exposure with the symptoms such as headaches and weakness, brain fog, impaired ability to learn and reason, chest pain, and numerous other symptoms that have been known to be caused by these signals that will baffle most conventional physicians, and they'll be like, what's going on? We don't know. These unknown illnesses are taking place. There's nowhere to hide from 5G radiation is another risk. Today, it is possible to live in a location that has reduced levels of microwave exposure. This is accomplished by choosing to live in a living space that is far away from cell phone towers. However, in the near future, it won't matter where we live because 5G will irradiate us wherever we happen to live or work. Cities can't say no to the 5G implementation either. FCC regulations, as I stated above, have been structured in such a way that local municipalities cannot stop telecom companies from installing 5G. they are specifically prohibited from trying to delay or stop 5G implementation on the basis of health concerns. Their only resource is to try to make the ground-based 5G system somewhat more aesthetically pleasant. Based on what has been happening around the country, telecom companies are sweeping aside local resistance of ours and many other people who have done the studies and gaining approval for their 5G systems in rapid succession, and it's happening whether we want it or not. Can 5G implementation be stopped? As far as I can tell, says this person, at this point the only way that 5G will be stopped will be by congressional action. If enough people raise a stink, so to speak, with their elected officials, then perhaps 5G could be put on hold for a while studies are done to examine the true health risks. Telecom investment in 5G has been massive. They've put a whole lot of money into this into this industry. They are planning full implementation on the ground and in space, everywhere. There's nowhere to escape it. They plan full implementation in their documentations for it to be on the ground and in space within the next couple of years. That's 2 years they plan it to be everywhere. No escaping anything. The time to object is now. And not after. Not after hundreds of thousands of people become sick. More like millions. Be ready for 5G radiation if you don't want it. A lot of pain is on the way. You can see these sources right here, as this article states. These are the sources. The sources for this information are Health Impact News, Cell Phone Task Force 1, 2, 3, Space Flight, Popular Mechanics, and Cell Phone Task Force 4. If any of you need to know the sources, those are the sources, as well as the Strange Sounds Twitter page, which I'll leave a link for all these sources shown right here in the center of the screen, and the Strange Sounds Twitter page below. So check out the comments and check out the information. It definitely needs to be heard, and this article needs to be seen. I'll cut the link. You can check it out. Peace. Much love. Stay as safe as possible. Bye.